Yo, what is going on, everyone? This is your host, Tarod McKnight, and you are now tuned into TARODCAST. If you are a brand new listener listening to us for the very first time, welcome. If you are a returning listener coming back for another weekly dose of TARODCAST awesomeness, welcome back. As you already know, at TARODCAST, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we're doing that, then we are doing our job. Today's episode comes from a specific documentary that I watched on Netflix called Wild Wild Country, and I highly recommend watching that. But it makes me think about the state of Black Americans in this country and the things that we are able to create but just haven't seemed to actually do yet. So today's episode topic is, they say this is a big rich town. This is TARODCAST. Let's get it. All right, everyone, welcome back to TARODCAST. Again, I am your host, Tarod McKnight, and I am bringing you an episode that is deeply rooted in conversations I've been having over the last couple of weeks, and it's led me to believe that there are some things that we as Black Americans in this country called the United States actually have the power to do now and to do with excellence than what we were able to accomplish before. And so today, this episode is called They Say This is a Big Rich Town. And yes, I stole this from the opening lyrics of 50 Cent and Joe's song from Power. And I love that series. It's a really good series. And I think about where we are as Black Americans and what we have the ability and the power to do that we weren't able to do before. It's something that we were looking to try and have for ourselves, but because of racist Caucasian people, our Mecca, our meeting place for Black excellence was destroyed. But now, during this time, we have the ability to recreate that, and that needs to happen so that way we have our own destination point. And so before I get into that, as you already know, we have some housekeeping duties to take care of. So with that being said, if you would like to take our show with you on the go, just know that we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Podchaser, Castbox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and YouTube. TARODCAST is also on Throne. Throne is a free live messaging application that allows us here at TARODCAST to exclusively reach our listeners. Make sure to sign up if you'd like to keep the conversations going after the episode. And if you're looking for natural oils for ultimate hydration and care for your hair and skin, hit up the Resilient Lotus at www.theresilientlotus.com. Furthermore, if you are a lover of authentic, chunky salsas, make sure to reach out to Morenitas Salsitas because they have some of the best salsas in this state. Oh my God. And last but not least, when it comes to those of you who enjoy makeup and you enjoy having a look that you've never had before, then hit up Jazzed by Jackie. And I have to apologize. The last couple episodes I said Jazzed with Jackie, and that was misinformation. But hit up Jazzed by Jackie. As always, all of this information will be in our episode notes. Now, so When I talk about this is a big rich town, what I'm referring to is, well, to start this off, what I'm referring to is the Greenwood District of Tulsa back in the 20s, where Black Americans had basically created a thriving commerce here right in my own home state of Oklahoma, where there were Black owned businesses, and the Black American community thrived beyond anything that people could even dream of. It was a place where Black Americans could come together and know that their dollar was being put towards an economy that was investing in them. It was a period of time where Tulsa, Oklahoma was like Atlanta, Georgia of today, and seeing the amount of Black people here that were thriving and contributing to this community was something that was unparalleled. It was unheard of, because so many people who were here were excellent people. The things that they were able to contribute to this community and to also be reinvested in when it came to this community, it really created an atmosphere that was full of love, and it was full of people that cared for one another. And just thinking about the fact that this actually existed, and also just the fact that, you know, even in my schooling, and I think about Oklahoma history and things like that, I was never taught about this. I was never given the information that allowed me to know that the original Black Wall Street was right here in my own home state. I learned a lot about Oklahoma. I learned a lot about Oklahoma's history, but Black Wall Street, the Black Wall Street of Oklahoma, of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was something that I never had the opportunity to learn about until recent years. And I find that to be incredibly alarming and also incredibly astounding, because people who look like me were at the forefront of such innovation, such creativity, such love. And to know that people who look like me, who essentially had their histories erased because of how we were brought to this country, that was something that for me, it gave me validation. Because, and I know I've talked about this before, but when it comes to Black Americans here in the United States, we come from a culture that does not have any roots, because those roots were cut and they were stripped away and they were burned. And we, as now Black Americans, were forced to assimilate into a country that did not value us. They did not care for us. Again, they saw us as 3/5 of a human being. And to see someone as 3/5 of a human being, again, I question that math. I question what it means to be 3/5 of a human. And so when I think about this, I think about this community that was built on allowing Black Americans to express themselves and to be themselves and to own the things that they create. And the fact that this community was such a thriving community, it's just the fact that it posed such a threat to other people who did not see us as people. I mentioned in the intro this documentary I watched called Wild Wild Country. It's on Netflix. I highly recommend watching that, because that documentary talks about a group of people who came from India to Oregon to establish a commune where in this commune, they didn't necessarily worship a deity, but it was centered around a man who is referred to as the Bhagwan, or in later accounts, the Osho. And because it was centered around him. It was centered around his philosophies. It was centered around the way that he believed the world and people to be. And so because of this, looking at the level of devotion and the level of just complete, just reverence of this man, an entire city was built with its own thriving commerce, with its own businesses, with its own commerce, and maybe I said commerce twice. I'm sorry, but it was built to truly show that the people who are here because they believe in who they are, and they believe in the person that has inspired them to create this entire city. And in watching that, the fact that they went through the entire the American legal process of creating a town, creating an atmosphere, creating an ecosystem where they would be allowed to thrive and they could have everything that they needed in order to support this town, to support one another. And watching that, it was really astounding, because for me, it shows that we as human beings are capable of so much than what we really give ourselves credit for. And when you have a group of people who have the same vision and have the same goal, you tend to realize that because of that, you can accomplish so much. And while they were doing all of these wonderful things, you see that the people in the neighboring town of Antelope, Oregon, began to have conflict with these people. They began to look at them and try to figure them out. And because they lived completely outside of what they knew or what they were familiar with, they began to have resentment. They began to have this level of confrontation and content. Not content, but what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it right now. But they began to have this level of malice, because everything that they didn't know about this new commune, it inspired their fear. It fueled their fear. And the thing is, the fear of the unknown is one of the most dangerous things that any person can allow to resonate and to build up inside of them. Because oftentimes what we have seen in history is that fear breeds hate, and hate breeds violence. And so when I was watching this documentary, watching the fact that they built this entire city from the ground up, they were creating something that it was completely for them. And to see that those who did not agree with them because they did not know them and they thought that they were morally superior to them, to see them come in and use everything that they could to destroy this town, that for me was incredibly alarming. Because it shows, and if you watch it, it's mainly, and I'm sorry to say it, it's mainly white conservative Christians who believe that they are morally superior to anyone else. They have no interest in getting to know anyone else. They have no interest in potentially learning something outside of their own beliefs, because they are comfortable in those beliefs and they are comfortable in their way of life, and they feel that anything that is outside of what they know is a threat. And to see the legal and illegal measures that they took in order to destroy this town. It is something that for me, it filled me with this rage. It filled me with this anger that I don't know if it can actually be satisfied, because when I think about the place where this comes from, I go back to the Tulsa race massacre. And the fact that there were white Americans who continued to see us as Black Americans as a threat, even though we had nothing to do with their way of life. Just the fact that they knew that here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there was a thriving Black community in the Greenwood District. They didn't want that. It's like they wanted us to, quote, know our place. But the thing is, we don't want to be in the same place as you. We don't want that hate. We don't want that animosity. So let us go over here and do what we do. We're not bothering you. We're not infringing on your right to live. But yet you feel like it is your God-given right to enact this superiority complex, this righteous justice, to put us in our place, because you don't understand the value of human life when it comes to people who don't look like you. And you bombed the city of Tulsa. You destroyed our commerce. You destroyed everything that we built. And to think that this is something to be proud of, I see the correlation between the city of Rajneesh, which is the name of that commune in Oregon, and I see the correlation between the Greenwood District of Tulsa, and it is alarming, the similarities that I see. Because you allow fear, you allow this fear of the unknown to overtake you, and to make you feel like you might be inadequate. And that is a personal problem. And so when it came to the first Black Mecca of the United States, Tulsa, Oklahoma was that Mecca. Some people will now say it's Atlanta. But for me, the first one was Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood District. And the fact that fear allowed white Americans to destroy that town because they were ignorant. And I feel like because that happened, it scarred us, it scared us. But with that being said, the Greenwood District of Tulsa was a small, rich town. And so I'm going to get into what it means to have a big, rich town. Because right now, in this very moment, in 2020, that is what we need. We need that. We need to be able to build that for ourselves again. Because we are not our ancestors. We will fight back. But we have to love what we have. We have to appreciate what we have. And so after this break, we're going to go into what it means, or what it could mean for us to start building these big, rich towns in the United States, and protecting them and loving them and making them excellent. So I hope that you have your water close by. We're going to take our break, and we will be right back. This is TARODCAST. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of TARODCAST, Tarod Rashan, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest TARODCAST thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the TARODCAST Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support. A $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks. So if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support TARODCAST this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the TARODCAST podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite TARODCAST streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. That's TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. All right, everyone, welcome back to TARODCAST. If you somehow forgot, I am your host, Tarod Rashan, and we are now going to talk about what it means to have a big, rich town. So, with that being said, we are in a very interesting time here in 2020 with the death of George Floyd. There are protests that have been happening daily, weekly over the last few weeks regarding his death and the fact that police brutality is such a huge issue when it comes to the death of people who look like us. Now, when it comes to our socioeconomic status, a lot of us are still susceptible to crimes that take place by people who look like us. And this is going to be the case for anyone in any specific area. Typically, when people are in the same area, there are atrocities or there are crimes that are committed by people who look just like you, and that's just a simple fact. In the hood, a lot of crimes are happened by people who look like me. In a lot of, suburban or affluent areas, there are a lot of crimes that happen by people who look like the people who live in those areas. And so those types of things are always going to be a given. People are going to be people, and people are not always going to agree on how certain things should be handled. And so we really need to understand that as well. But as far as the things that we have been seeing, I feel like the death of George Floyd was the straw that broke America's back. And now, because of this, we have been seeing an uprising. We have been seeing so many businesses and people who have come out in support of Black Lives Matter and the fact that our lives are human lives and that they should be treated just as fairly as other human lives. And so with that being said, I see a lot of businesses who are coming out and attempting to support this particular type of movement and showing their solidarity for everything that's going on. And whether it is a marketing ploy or whether they actually mean it, we're seeing a lot more places, we're seeing a lot more people who are lending their support in this particular type of situation. And the thing is, I'm like, I'm glad it's happening, but at the same time, I'm not the one who is about to go and research people's intentions. I don't have the time because, again, I am not addicted to outrage. So I'm not trying to see who's actually real and who's actually not, because I don't have the time for it. I can only be concerned with my life and the lives that I am responsible for. And so because of that, it's like, when it comes to these types of situations, if you are for us, great. If you are using this as a way of driving sales, then you really need to reevaluate what it is that you truly stand for. Because for me, I'm not somebody who is looking at businesses who were not created by people who look like me to give me solace or to give me comfort. I could care less, because for me, I'd rather be focusing on those that I actually support. And in that same vein, I want to give my time, my energy, and my dollar to those that I actually support. And so I feel like in this time right now, this is where we as Black Americans need to actually come together and start figuring out ways to build destination points in every state. We need to figure out ways to create our own town that is run on the principles of excellence and loyalty in every state. Because when I think about this documentary that I watched, a group of people, and according to the U.S. Constitution, it only takes 150 people to actually create a town and have it legalized to where you can start creating that infrastructure. You can create that economy. You can create this exchange of commerce with the businesses in that town. And I feel like at this point, we as Black Americans are at a tipping point where this situation would allow us to create something so grand that it becomes a destination point. It becomes something that people want to come to. Because the thing is, when it comes to the things that we are familiar with, I mean, I grew up in the hood. I know what the hood is like. I stayed on the east side of Oklahoma, and so I understand what is there. I understand who is there. I understand that is a literal desert when it comes to resources, because little to no money is going to the east side of Oklahoma. And there are so many places that are becoming more and more gentrified in order to attract other people into those areas. And for me, I see that as something that is completely beyond our control, because a lot of us still see ourselves as victim to circumstance. We see ourselves as victim to the socioeconomic status that has been imposed on us. I think about the fact that there was a year where the Oscars happened and Straight Outta Compton came out, and Straight Outta Compton was a really good movie. I enjoyed watching it. But I remember there was this spinoff, like this Black Oscars show where, you know, it was mainly filled with people of color, majority Black, and they were basically making a parody of the Oscars, this dignified award ceremony. And I remember watching that, and I was just completely appalled, because it showed me that at that time, we as Black Americans, we still are in a place where we don't take ourselves seriously. We don't look at each other and see the value in one another. Some of the award categories were just outrageous, and it completely turned me off, because if this is what we're going to do, then how are we ever going to know excellence? How are we ever going to define what excellence really is for us? And looking at this, it's just, it really made me angry, because we have every right, we have every opportunity to support those who look like us. And again, let me preface all this by saying this. I know I'm a little bit late in this prefacing, but let me just say this right now. We have every ability to decide for ourselves what we believe is excellent and what we believe should be honored. We have every right to appreciate quality when it comes to those who look like us. We also have every right to critique the mediocrity in us as well. And the thing is, we need to do it from a place that allows us to learn and grow, because if we continue to accept things that are mediocre, we will never know what excellence really is. And so as I think about this type of mindset, it makes me think that now, especially at this point in our lives, we need to really begin focusing on the things that make us who we are, and the things that we love, and the things that we want to support. Because the thing is, you know what? We glorify all of these other businesses. We glorify all these other companies, Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, Balenciaga, all this other stuff that is not made by us. But at one point, there was a brand called FUBU, which stood for us, by us. And we didn't give it the value that it needed to have, because we thought that other brands were more luxurious. We thought that other brands had more to give to us, but all they wanted was our money. And if all that they want is our money, then they don't want us. And so why not actually take time to build something that is literally for us and by us? So that way we have control over the products that are being manufactured. We have control over everything that particular brand or company or institution has to offer. We need to realize the value that we inherently have within one another. And in realizing that value, we need to carry ourselves with excellence. So with that being said, we're going to take our last break of the show. And when we come back, I want to talk about what it would actually mean to have a big, rich town of our own. Because now is the point where that really needs to happen. And it's not about segregation. It's not about, just completely isolating ourselves from the rest of the world. But we need to have places that we can go to, that we can move to, that we can invest in, that will also invest in us. So I still hope you have your water close by. And when we come back, we'll end the show with that. This is TARODCAST. All right, y'all. Welcome back to TARODCAST. I hope that you all are continuing to stay hydrated during this time. And right now, when it comes to the tail end of our show, I really want to go in on what it means to have our own big, rich town. Because for me, I feel like that's something that we deserve. And so because of that, this is something that I really want to see happen again. Because again, I'm not coming from a standpoint of segregation, but at the same time, what I want to just emphasize is the fact that for us, there's so many black millionaires out here in the world, so many black Americans, and also black people who are not American who have so much money. And during this time, we see a lot of celebrities who are talking about, donating to this or buying this in order to support different movements. But what if, and really consider this, but what if black celebrities and black Americans in general came together to build cities in every state where black excellence could truly be displayed, where it creates this community of people who are for one another, and they do things for one another, and they create an ecosystem that the money spent in this ecosystem gives power and validation to those who are helping to run it. Because I think about the fact that it doesn't take much to buy land. It doesn't take much to own the rights to a certain area. Yes, you have to go through the legalities, but at the same time, those legalities are put in place so that things like this can happen. And so what if we all actually came together? What if every black celebrity with their millions upon millions of dollars donated at least $500,000 to $1 million for at least a few states to begin this process? And that's also coupled with fundraising efforts for people who actually want this to happen. It makes me think about all of the black doctors, the black lawyers, the black business owners who would flock to those areas to set up shop, to be an effective resource in helping this town to thrive, helping this new city to thrive. Because one of the things that I tend to see is that whenever we as black Americans obtain some sort of status, we move away from those areas that we grew up in. And I understand why that happens. I understand why that is a thing. But at the same time, what if we were able to create in every state a Black Mecca that is not necessarily restricted only to black people, but again, like I said before, it becomes a destination point where when it comes to the things that are there, we are the ones who are in control, and we are the ones who decide what happens. We are the ones who create that entire infrastructure that allows us to thrive, that allows us to be the next Greenwood District of Tulsa. Because if we had something like that, I would move there in a heartbeat. Because even though there are certain things that I don't agree with when it comes to black Americans and how we typically are portrayed in the media and the stereotypes that are typically associated with us, I want to support black people. I want to support black businesses. I want to be a contributing member of a thriving black society. And the thing is, we need to have the foresight to know that we cannot do this unless we do it with purpose. And if we do it with purpose, this means that everybody who is there believes in what is happening. Everybody who is there believes in the potential and the greatness of this city, this big, rich town. And when you believe that, you fight to defend that. We will not have another Greenwood District Tulsa race massacre. We will not have that, because if anything, I will defend it with my life, because it's something that I am proud of. It's something that means something to me. And so in order for us to truly start rebuilding in this country that stripped everything away from us, we need to really look inward and see that we as black Americans, even though our history is a void, we can still reach into that void and pull out so many things that give us validation. And what better way to validate ourselves than by having in every state a black city that is thriving, a black city that many people from all across the world would want to travel to, because they will be able to experience and appreciate our greatness as people. We already give so much of ourselves to this world, and we receive none of the credit for it. And so why not take a moment to actually think about the fact that we can receive credit for what we create, and we don't have to be concerned with anyone else, because it is ours. It is for us, and it is by us. Damon John was on to something when he created that acronym. And that is something that, for me, I hate that the brand itself has died, and that it's now the subject of ridicule by the black community. And I hate that. I hate that, because it was something that was literally created for us. And so the thing is, once we actually start to appreciate and value one another, we can actually come together to recreate this, because that is what is desperately needed. Again, I will move there in a heartbeat, because I want to support people who look like me. And I'm not saying I don't want to support anybody else, but when it comes to people who look like me, I want to have that camaraderie. I want to have that loyalty, and I want that to be shown in return. And so we desperately need that. And with that being said, as I close today's show, I want to make the reality of this episode known. It is possible. It is incredibly possible, because if HBCUs could be created, then a town can be created. If centers of black excellence can be erected, then our own big rich town can be erected. And trust me, it can be something that no one else has ever seen. There are so many places in each state where other nationalities have their own district. There's an Asian district, an Italian district. There's a Hispanic district. We know these places. And the thing is, for us, all we have right now are our hoods, and nobody wants to go there. So why not create a place that we want to go? Why not create a place where it forces us to be excellent? It forces us to love each other. It forces us to care about one another, to actually put the neighbor back in neighborhood. Why not have something like that? Because we desperately need that. It is something that, for us, it is completely necessary. And this is one of the few ways that I believe we will really be able to heal. And until we understand that, we're always going to be running in circles. So let's make it happen. So y'all, that's our show. You all know how to find us. You all know how to support us. If your podcasting listening service of choice allows you to leave us a review, leave us a review. We really appreciate that. And also make sure to take these conversations to our throne room. We want to hear from you as well. And so with that being said, wherever you are, whomever you are, I want to always encourage you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are, trust in who you are, and love who you are. Again, I am your host, Tarod Rashan. I just want to say thank you for listening to this episode of TARODCAST, and hopefully it gives you something to think about. And as you're thinking about this, always make every effort to find and keep your peace. Till next time.